Welcome to experimental psychology. All right. For this lesson, we're going to talk about the inferential and descriptive statistics. Okay, ano yung difference ng dalawa? What are the statistical treatment that we need to consider before we formulate um, para makapag-come up tayo ng maayos na statistical treatment. Malaman natin kung i-accept natin si null hypothesis or reject natin. Okay? So, it is just review lang sa stats natin sa PsychStat. Okay? So, titingnan na session objective and goals using of chi-square. Paano ginagamit si chi-square? Paano ginagamit si Ttest, si Ftest, or ano ba? Okay? So, in inferential statistic, ito yung mga key terms na kailangan natin tatandaan. Observe and critical values. When we say observe values, we're going to tackle that one earlier kung ano ba yung number of data na nakuha natin. Kay critical values naman, kung anong critical level ng number, okay? Sa critical values natin makikita kung saan yung rejection of hypothesis. Okay? What is the purpose of p-values, hypotheses, and errors? Okay? Inferential statistics. Statistical test will see if the null hypothesis is true. Okay? Tulad nga ng sinasabi na dito natin malalaman if may effect ba ang pinasok nating variable, if it's correlation, may correlation ba sila? Okay? Dito na pasok yung null and null hypothesis at saka yung alternative. If results were found by chance, then the null must be accepted. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kung nagkataon lang kaya naging ganon ang result in using statistical treatment, i-reject, i-accept natin si null hypothesis. Okay? Ibig sabihin, there's no relationship. Okay? If that is correlational. We also have involved the calculation of observed value. Observed value, this is the specific type of data na nakuha natin. Okay? That is the observed value. This is i-compare natin yung observed value natin doon sa critical value natin. Okay, so dito natin malalaman kung by chance lang ba yun, kaya nagkataon na ganun yung observed value natin, or totoo nga na ganun yung data. Mamaya for further explanation ng critical value and observed value, explain natin siya. Okay, halimbawa, meron kang 100 grams ng potato chips. Okay? Ang sabi sa observed value, ito ay 100 grams. So, yun ngayon yung hypothesis mo. The potato chips has a 100 grams. Okay? So, that is the alternative or hypothesis, which is the observed value. So, gusto mo makita kung 100 grams ka ba talaga si potato chips. Okay? So, i-compare mo yung observed na 100 comparing do sa critical value niya. Okay, a review tulad yan sabi ko kanina, when we say critical value, hindi pwedeng mawawala dito si normal curve. Okay? Normal curve. Alright. This region, this is an example of two-tailed test. Okay? So, equal siya. Symmetrical siya. Okay? Yung region na to, dito mo rejection region to. Kapag pumalo si critical value dito, okay, so kailangan ay hanggang dito lang sa linya na to pag pa-symmetrical yung data mo. Kapag pumalo si critical value dito sa red na to or sa rejection level, also with this one, ibig sabihin, i-reject mo si alternative hypothesis. Okay? Okay, so, right, chance. What is chance? Chance will play a role in psychological studies. Um, Ibig sabihin, nagkataon lang ba na ganun yung hypothesis mo? Or yun talaga yung real outcome? Okay? Statistical tests show whether a result is due to chance or result is due to the independent variable. Okay? So, doon natin malalaman um, sa statistical test na gagamitin natin kung by chance lang ba, nagkataon lang ba yung hypothesis mo na kaya siya ganun? Or dahil may epekto may epekto talaga sa independent variable? Or kung relationship yan, may relationship ba talaga siya? When the probability of something being due to chance are known, then we can decide to accept either the null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis. Okay? So, if the difference between the data is too small to be significant to show a real effect, the null hypothesis is accepted. So, paano natin malalaman if the difference is significant? Okay? In psychology, napasok dito yung 0.05 or the 5%. Okay? Um, we accept the experimental or the alternative hypothesis kapag pumasok siya sa 5% or 0.05. Okay? Depende. Bakit siya 5% is because of out of 100, yung chances niya, ibig sabihin nun ay 5% doon kailangan pumasok. Okay? Pag hindi pumasok um, yung computed values natin, ibig sabihin ay by chance lang siya. Alright? If it is bigger, then we accept the null. Okay? So, the null, as it unlikely the effect was caused by IV. But in psychology, we do not do fractions. Okay? In most research, results are often accepted statistically significant if there is a 1/20 likelihood or less than the result being due to chance. Okay? Results are nearly always accepted if there's a 1/100 likelihood or less than result due to chance. Okay, so sabi dito na dito sa first bullet na 1/20, it is when you computed the value ay 0.05% siya. Okay, results are nearly always accepted if there is 1/100 likelihood or less of the result due to chance. Okay, so meaning kasi mas malaki siya dun sa 0.05, it's 1%. Later, we'll discuss it further. Okay, alright, so ito yung sasabi natin kanina na kapag 1/20, yung chances, it is 0.5 or the 5%. Okay? So, kapag 1/100, it is 0.1%. Okay? Or 1%. 1/1000, it's 0.001 or 0.1. Typical values used in psychology, since that is the 5%. Okay? Dapat ay 1/20 or 0.5 ang ginagamit natin or which is 5% para malaman natin if we're going to accept or reject the hypothesis. And also, tinitingnan natin kung pasok siya sa critical value. Okay, ito yung ginagamit natin. Okay, at this one is for medical kasi. Oh, no, not one. This one is for medical. Okay, so let's see later kung paano natin gagamitin si 0.05. Okay? The probability of result are equal or less than 5% due to chance. Okay? Yung mahalaga natin tatandaan na P or probability of results being due to chance lang ba talaga siya, as what I'm saying earlier, or there is a relationship, it's correlational, or there is a difference, or there is an effect if it's experimental. Okay? So, okay, so ito yung p-value dapat natin, 0.05, which is we usually use in psychology and research. Level of significance. Statistical tests also require the number or the degree of freedom. Depende sa kung ano sinabi ng statistical test na ano yung degree of freedom, yun yung gagamitin mo when you do or when you apply statistical tool doon sa study mo. Okay, kung sinabi doon na ang degree of freedom nito ay may nakalagay doon, kukunin mo yung degree of freedom if it's an adaptive test. Okay? Tapos siya ngayon yung i-apply mo doon mm, sa research mo. Okay? N is the number of participants scores and DF is the degree of freedom. Okay, now we have error. Error is like type 1 and type 2 error. It is accept and reject. Ang type 1 error, when the null hypothesis is rejected and the alternative is supported when the effect was not real. Okay, so ang type 1 error, it is also called an alternative hypothesis. Ibig sabihin, para maiwasan tong error na to, we shouldn't fake the results. Okay? Usually occurs when the level of significance is too lenient. Okay? Um, Less than 0.1 hanggang or the 10%. Explain natin mamaya. Ang type 2 error naman ay ito yung when the alternative is rejected and the null is accepted. When there was an effect. Okay? Or in a relationship if there is no relationship doon sa sinasabi ng hypothesis. By the way, type 1 error and type 2 error, lagi siyang nakadepende sa kung ano ang hypothesis mo. Okay? Ignoring the real results. Why? Kasi yung observed value mo is when you computed when you do the statistical method na in-apply mo, ignore mo yung um, yung observed value mo. Okay? Usually occurs when the level of significance is too stringent. Okay? Maaaring pwedeng less than 0.01 or rather less than sa 0.05. Alright. So, interpreting inferential statistics. The critical value is, paano makikita yun? When you have a table and all the data. Yung observed value is the calculated value. Okay, so that is continuous. It can be continuous. Okay? Then you have to decide if you're going to accept or reject the hypothesis and why. Okay? So, dito papasok yung reject the hypothesis because hindi siya pumasok doon sa inaasahan na critical value na 0.5. Okay? Ganun siya. Yung p-value due to chance and p not due to chance. Okay? The probability number natin. Null hypothesis, are we going to accept or reject? Okay, and why? As what I'm saying earlier. Then, alternative hypothesis, reject or accept and why. Okay, so laging naka-support si dito pinapakita dito na yung dalawang klaseng hypothesis na alternative and null hypothesis. Okay, so and reason. Well, actually, regarding dito sa hypothesis, pwede naman dalawa ang ilagay mo. Okay? Or pwede din naman isa lang as long as madaling maintindihan ng isang magbabasa ang isang research paper o ang isang data. So, when we say null hypothesis is accept, meaning to say, reject na automatic si alternative hypothesis. And then, you have to put lang kung bakit mo in-accept doon si null hypothesis. Ngayon, what is the correct inferential statistic that we need to use? Okay? In choosing inferential statistic, we have difference or relationship. Okay? You have to identify first. Kasi ito yung pinakamahirap eh. Ano yung statistical treatment yung gagamitin ko? Siyempre, para bago mo malaman kung ano yung statistical tool or treatment ang gagamitin mo, kailangan mo muna identify kung nominal ba yan. Okay? Ordinal, interval, or ratio. Alam na natin yan, pero ang nominal, any categorical data. Example, gender, male, female. Okay? More on qualitative si nominal. Ito yung mga data na hindi natin naka-quantify. So, ordinal naman, it's rank. Okay? No true score. Masasabi natin na mataas, pero the difference ng score ay hindi malalaman. Okay? Kasi nga, ranking lang. Rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, parang mga honor lang yan. Okay? Honorable 1, 2, 3. Masasabi mo kung anong rank, pero hindi mo alam kung gaano siya kataas. Interval naman ay dito yung distance, kung gaano kalayo. Halimbawa, may isang participants na sinagot, ako ay, ang score ko ay 99. Tapos yung isa ay 90T. Gaano kalayo yung distance namin? So, 99 and 90 para madaling computin. Gaano kalayo yung distance namin? Ang interval niya is 9. Okay? Next is 80 and 85. Gaano kalayo yung interval? It is 5. Okay? Ratio has an absolute value. Okay? Yun yung height, weight, kasi may absolute 0 tayo. Okay? May height na 0, may weight na 0. Okay? Interval, kasama dito is yung temperature. Okay? Kung gaano kataas yung temperature kasi wala naman siyang absolute 0. Okay? Then, group design. Independent groups and repeated measures. So, dito, sa group design, malalaman natin kung ano ba dito yung sinusukat natin at ano dito ang nakaka-apekto. Okay? May pwedeng independent groups or the IV, and ito naman, repeated measures is in correlation na gagamit. Okay, so we need to identify kung if it's also correlational, experimental, or anong klaseng group design siya or research design. One and two-tailed hypothesis. When we say one-tailed, two-tailed, let's go for the two-tailed first. When we say two-tailed, symmetrical. Okay? Pag sinabi natin one-tailed, it's not symmetrical. It's either accept or reject. Next, kailangan mo ma-identify yung level of significance niya and the number of participants and the degree of freedom. Okay, for this one, example, meron tayong okay, balik tayo sa chips. Okay? Sabi natin na ang chips na to ay may 100 grams. Okay? So, kung 100 grams yun, ang null hypothesis mo is um, it's not equal to 100. Ang alternative, it's equal to 100. Okay, so dito, ang inaano natin, explain muna natin ito. Okay? Etong, halimbawa, si sinasabi mo na itong null hypothesis ay merong 100 grams yung potato chips. Pagkatapos, sinasabi naman ng isang empleyado or ng consumer ay walang 100 grams yung isang potato chips. Okay, so for you to identify that one, kung ano gagamitin mo na kung mag-one-tailed or two-tailed ka, identify mo muna kung saan dito yung critical value. Halimbawa, ay itong shaded part na to, sabi natin kanina is the rejection area. Kapag pumasok siya dito sa symmetrical value, ay ang mangyayari, i-reject mo yung hypothesis. Okay? So, itong z-score ay nag-identify ng separation nating dalawa. Okay? Ng two-tailed. And then, this will be the mean. Kapag pumasok sa area na ito, ibig sabihin is i-accept mo ibig sabihin ay i-accept mo si hypothesis. Alright? So, halimbawa, meron tayong alpha of 0.05. Okay? So, whichever na gamitin mo dito, kung mag-two-tailed ka or one-tailed ka is correct. However, dito, pinapakita dito na sa rejection area, kung i-reject mo or accept mo sa hypothesis, dito naman, ipinapakita dito is yung distance ng dalawa. Halimbawa, dito ay ang mean is less than 100 grams. Okay? So, kapag sabi natin ang hypothesis or ang hypothesis niya is less than 100 gram, kailangan ay pumasok siya dito sa area na ito. Okay? Kapag sinabi naman natin na ang grams ng potato chips ay greater than dun sa 100 grams, dapat dito sa area pumasok. Okay? So, pinagkaiba lang niya is the shading at kung paano at depende sa construction ng hypothesis statement mo para malaman kung mag-one-tailed ka or two-tailed din na gagamitin. Okay, so ulitin natin. Sasabi dito na the mean is not equal to 100 grams. Gusto nating i-test itong hypothesis na to. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin, pwede tayong gumamit ng one-tailed test or the left-tailed test. Okay, na ang mean is less than 100 grams. Okay? So, kung gagamit naman tayo ng right-tailed test, ay gusto na, kapag pumasok siya sa area ng right or on this side, ay ibig sabihin nun ay greater dun sa 100 grams. Okay? So, dito ipinapakita na ang distribution ng isa in symmetrical, dito naman ipinapakita kung less than or greater than yung potato chips na nakuha. Okay? Kasi ang sabi dito sa hypothesis na to ay not equal daw ang number of grams ng potato chips. Okay? So, kaya siya gumamit ng one-tailed para ma-identify if it's greater or less than the 100 grams. Okay? All right, let's move to level of significance. Level of significance is um, tayo, ito yung level of significance. Okay? So, 0.05. We identified that one already. Okay? And number of participant and degree of freedom, it depends kung gaano kadami yung, kung yung computed value mo, okay, para makuha ang degrees of freedom. Okay, so hindi natin isa-isahin lahat ng statistical treatment. Okay, ang gagawin natin is, what I did is to, I chose lang ng isa, which is the chi-squared. Bakit? Kasi pagdaanan naman natin ito sa psych-stat. Okay, so chi-squared, ginagamit siya to know the relationship. Also, yung difference. Okay? Kapag um, si correlational kasi, or si person R, relationship din siya. However, ay linear relationship yung gusto nating makuha doon. Okay? So, ginagamit to also for nominal or categorical data and with an independent groups. So, paano ang formula? Ito yung formula niya. Okay, so O for this one is the observed or the expected values. O is this one is the observed values, E is the expected values, and the squared. Okay, over the expected value. Now, there will be a difference between the aggressive and non-aggressive behavior of male and female inmates in a high security unit. That's the hypothesis. Okay? That is the hypothesis mo. There will be difference between the aggressive and non-aggressive behavior of male and female inmates in high security unit. Okay? So, paano mo ite-test? We have here, chi-squared involves the calculating the expected values of the four cells, the A, B, C, and D, and then comparing them with the observed values. Tapos, we have male and female as the participants. And titingnan natin kung who is more aggressive. Okay? Or kung may difference ba yung aggressiveness nila. Okay, we have 28 and 10 female. And okay, tapos yung non-aggressive na male is 13 over 8 na female. Step 1, kung paano natin siya gagawin is that table the cells of the table. Okay, so sabi natin kanina may ABCD tayo. Sa male, sa cell A, sa cell B, cell C, and cell D. Okay, so titingnan natin yung relationship each cells. Step 2, calculate natin expected value for each cells. Okay? So, expected value calculation, total of the row containing X or the number of the column containing the required cell. Okay, of the required cell. Okay, example, cell A, ang total nito ay 32. 22 and 10 is equal to 32. Total column neto ng cell A ay 22 plus 13 is 35. Okay? And then we need to total that one. Alright? So, that will be 32 times 35. Nakuta sa yung raw score, total raw, and then times natin siya din sa 35, which is the column total. Then we come up with 1,120. Okay? And then, yung total number of cells natin, which is 53. Okay? So, for that one, okay? So, paano natin nakuha yan? Is, tinotal natin itong male-female ng each cells. Okay? Which is the 53. Yung 100 1,120 na na-computed natin dun sa row total and then the column total ay i-divide natin siya into 53, which is the ang sagot is 21.13. Okay? For each cell, following things need to be calculated for the expected value. Um, find the total of the row containing the cell and find the total column containing the cell and multiply the row total by the uh, column total divided by the total number of observation. Okay? So, dito pinapakita yung kanina. Okay? So, total neto is 32 and then for this cell, na male and female dun sa non-aggressive is 21. Is equal to 53. Okay. So, what for this one, what we did is we do the math doon sa kanina. Okay? So, sa cell B, okay, yung row kanina na 32, okay, and the column total number is 18. 32 times 18 is equal to 576. Then total number of all cells is 53. And then we come up with dito sa 10.87. And kinalculate natin bawat isa, or kinalculate ko bawat isa ng cells na yon. Cell A, cell B, cell C, and cell D. Okay? With this, using also this row total for each. Ask me during synchronous kung nalilito. Okay? For each cell, subtract E from O. Okay, expected natin and from the observation value. Then square the answer divided by the answer by E. Okay, so we come up with this one. Okay, so hindi ko na siya elaborate. Then the final step is to calculate the value of chi-squared. Okay, by adding up all the previous calculation. Okay, 0.27. So, degrees of freedom, this needs to be known in order to look up the critical value. So, to find the degree of freedom, subtract 1 from the number of rows. Okay, subtract 1 from the number of columns, multiply the two answer together. So, for this, for 2 times 2 study, the degree of freedom is always 21. Okay? For that is only for degrees of freedom na nandito. Okay? So, kung titingnan natin siya dun sa critical values table, okay? Dito, sa example, gumamit ng two-tailed test. Okay? So, to be significant, the observed value must be equal or greater than the critical value. Okay? So, since that negative 3.84 ang critical value, at ito ay hindi niya na-reach yon, ay ang nakuha niya lang is 0.27, anong ngayon ang conclusion? Ay to be significant, the observed value must be equal or greater than the critical value, which was not. So, accept natin si null hypothesis. No effect more than 5%, probably results are due to chance. And reject natin si alternative hypothesis na sabi kanina. Okay? So, there was no difference between the aggressive and non-aggressive behavior of male and female inmates in a high security unit. Alright? So, ganun po ginagawa si chi-squared. Okay? Next would be the Ttest. A Ttest is statistic that checks if two means or the average are reliability different from each other. Okay? So, a Ttest is used to compare the mean of two given samples. Okay? A Ttest is used when the population parameters or the mean and the standard deviation are not known. Okay? So, why not just look at the means? Bakit din na natin tingnan yung means? Looking at the means may show a difference, but we can't be sure if that is reliable difference. Kasi nga, ay exact data lang yung meron tayo. Okay? Pero hindi natin makikita kapag hindi tayo gumamit ng t-test kung yung layo ng bawat isang data na yun. Okay? Um, Halimbawa, with this kind of table, um, between your coins tosses and my coin tosses, makikita lang natin yung difference kung gaano kadami yung tinos mo na coin and then yung tinos ko na coin. But we cannot the actual tosses, but we cannot know kung um, gaano yung difference ng bawat tosses na yon. Okay? So, dito, pinasok ko si descriptive and inferential. When we say descriptive statistics, these are statistics such as mean that describes data you have but can't be generalized. Ibig sabihin, when we say descriptive statistics, ito yung mean, median, mode lang. Okay? Paano yun? Di ba si mean, median, mode, sasabi doon lang ay yung observe value natin. Okay? Okay, so sa descriptive, it summarizes, simplify, and organize into one single number lang. Tulad nga sabi natin, sa descriptive statistic, para lang siya sa mean, median, mode, variance, correlation, na pwede mag-represent sa kabuoang data. Si inferential statistic is more generalizable. Mas ma-generalize natin siya sa whole population. Okay? Such as ANOVA, regression, okay, chi-squared, and ano pa ba? Ttest. Okay? Yung mga statistical treatment na inferential statistics na yon ay malalaman mo in detail kung bakit nangyari yung bagay na yon. Okay? If that is correlation, the relationship, kung may relationship sa kanila, gagamitin natin siya ng inferential statistic para mas ma-generalize natin, mas malaman natin yung dami ng data. Okay? Gagamitin din natin yung inferential statistics experimental kasi nga gusto natin makita yung kung may effect ba yung isang pinapasok natin. Bakit hindi natin pwede gamitin si descriptive statistics? Kasi ibinibigay lang neto ang observed value. Okay? Alright. So, example of Ttest. Example would be research develop a new drug named testosterone for cholesterol. To test the drug, it was given to the control group, the placebo and the independent group. Okay? So, for this one, we have, this is the drug na na-develop na testosterone. Okay? Titingnan dito kung may epekto ba ito doon sa control group. Okay? Pero this testosterone ay placebo lamang siya. Okay? So, wala siyang effect dapat. Okay? Descriptively, it only tell us the different but does the drug actually work. Okay? So, for this one, we have group 1, the testosterone and the control group. Okay? Makikita lang natin kung pinagkaiba nila, pero yung pinagkaiba na yun ay reliable pa. Okay? So, kailangan, that's the reason why kailangan natin ng inferential statistics for us to prove kung nagbago ba talaga yung effect na yon using by the drug, or nagbago ba talaga yon by, is just by the chance lang. Okay? So, how do we know if the p-value is big enough to show a difference? Each t-value has p-value. Okay? The p-value tells us likelihood that there is a real difference. So, the p-value, specifically, the p-value is probability that the pattern of data is sampled could be produced by random data. So, this is an example of p-value na ginagamit natin, which is the 0.5 or the 0.05 rather. There's a 5% chance that there is no real difference. Okay? So, sample size. The p-value of each t-value also depends on the sample size. Ibig sabihin, nakadepende ang sample size kung mas ma-generalize natin ang isang nakuha nating data. Bakit? Kasi bigger samples make it easier to detect the difference. Okay, so bigger samples help, but with diminishing returns. A good guideline is to aim for 20 for 30 plus data point in each group. So, sa sample size, kailangan tulad for the Ttest, kailangan para ma-identify natin na may significant difference sila, dapat yung participants natin or ang participants natin sa study ay meron tayong 20 to 30 plus. Okay? Okay, meron tayong tatlong version of Ttest. We have independent sample Ttest, used when comparing mean of two groups. It is used when comparing the means of two independent groups when sample are less than 30. Okay? So, independent sample Ttest, example, testing the average quality of quality of two different bunches of beer. Okay, so that is the example. These independent sample Ttest are best used for experimental group between the subjects. Okay, so ito yung ginagamit. Okay, so you have two groups kung saan i-identify mo yung difference kapag nagpasok ka ng program or ng intervention dun sa wala kang ipinasok na program or intervention. So, independent sample Ttest ang usually ginagamit to identify the difference of that one. Okay? Good to sa between the subject or yung meron kang two groups. So, dependent sample Ttest naman, ginagamit or also called as paired sample Ttest, ginagamit to usually for difference ng within the subject group. Ano yon? So within the subject group, halimbawa, example of testing balance before and after drinking. Also called as within the subject repeated measures and dependent samples. Okay, so halimbawa, etong tao na to or diagram na to na una is iti-test mo kung ilan kung kaya ba nila na gaano kadami yung beer ang kaya ng isang tao na mainom. Halimbawa, sa isang tao meron isang beer, pangalawa, pangatlo, pang-apat, pang-lima bago siya matumba. Okay, or bago siya malasing. Okay, so sa madaling salita, within the subjects, ginagamit paired sample Ttest o yung yung dependent sample t-test. So, dependent sample t-test, tulad niyan sabi, meron siyang paired sample t-test na tinatawag. So, i-compare mo yung dami na nainom ng isang tao, halimbawa, alcohol yan, tapos compare dun sa isang tao, okay, that within the subject, kung ilan kadami yung maiinom ng isa. Kung ilang bottles bago sumuko, okay, or bago siya malasing. One sample t-test naman, test the mean of one group against a set of man. Against a set of mean. Halimbawa, gagamit ko si one sample t-test para ma-identify mo kung yung average IQ ba ng coworkers mo ay same with the number of the normal IQ na meron ka sa isang organization or participants. Okay? So, halimbawa, itong IQ level ba nito ng 5 tao is same lang sa IQ level na meron doon sa pangkalahatan. Okay? Ganun siya ginagamit. Kino-compare dito yung samples over the population, pwede din. Okay, so one sample t-test. However, this t-test has limitations also. Okay, example, results of tests of adults can be generalized to children. Okay, so bakit? Kasi nga may specific tayo na hinahanap dito sa using t-test. Okay? Alright, number 2, your sample and population should be roughly normal in distribution. This means most scores will be around the mean with fewer scores further out resembling a bell curve. Okay, ano ibig sabihin? Halimbawa, ay kailangan may normal distribution ka ng bawat data mo na nakuha. Okay? Tapos, para makapagkanda ka na mas na maayos sa bell curve kapag nagplot ka na ng hypothesis. 3, each group should have about the same number of data points. Okay? So, dapat kukuha mo yung data points ng control group at saka ng experimental group. Okay? Hindi pwede na yung isa ka lang na may grupo na may set of data points. Kasi may hirapan ka or hindi mo mako-compare kung may effect ba kung ito ay experimental dun sa gusto mo makita. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan, kung nagko-compare ka, halimbawa dito sa one sample t-test, may hirap ma-identify kung data ba na ginamit mo ay accurate. Okay, makapag-produce ka kasi dito sa one sample t-test ng inaccurate type of data because of onti yung participants mo, kinu-compare mo siya sa mas madami. Okay? All data should be independent. This means the score should not be influenced by others. Okay? Number 5, your data should be approximately interval or higher. This means each unit of measurement should be about equal to any other unit. Okay? Now, let's move to one-way ANOVA or the Ftest. Okay, the one-way ANOVA is used to compare the means of more than 2 sample in a between subject. Halimbawa, gagamit sa one-way ANOVA if you have tatlo ang grupo na ina-identify or gusto mong makuha. Meron kang control, meron kang drag A, at meron kang drag B. You want to know the difference between the 3 groups. Okay? So, example, is recall better under hypothesis or without? Okay? Is recall better under hypnosis or without? Okay? So, halimbawa yung example mo. Use an existing memory test, randomly assign participants to one of 3 groups. Meron kang, sa independent variable mo, meron kang group, meron kang, i-control mo to, meron kang hypnotized group, and not hypnotized and drunk. Okay? Independent variable, number of words na kung saan makapag-produce sila ng mas madaming recalling or memory. Okay, so may tatlo kang independent variable, tapos meron kang isang dependent variable. Okay? Do hypnotized participant remember more words than unhypnotized or drunk participants? Okay? So, gigamit din if mas madami pa ang grupo na gusto mo makuha, ito kasi 1, 2, 3 groups. These are the group. We have control, we have hypnotized, not hypnotized, and we have drunk. Kapag mas madami dito, ay kukuha ka or gagamit ka ng post-hoc comparison. Okay, hindi ko na i-explain si post-hoc comparison kasi sobrang lawak na post-hoc comparison. Okay? Sa post-hoc comparison, gusto mo lang ma-identify yung dispersion of data. Okay? Gusto mo mas makita pang ang dispersion of data kapag mas madami na dito ang grupo na gusto mong makuha or ang independent variable mo. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson. So, if you still have a question, you may ask me during synchronous. Okay? Thank you for listening.